What's up, guys? Welcome back to the perspective video series. Today what we're doing is we're creating our own drawing. This is pretty much a completely unscripted thing for me. So before anything even happens, I'm sorry if my drawing comes out bad. But it's literally just me completely figuring out my drawing from scratch. So that way I can help you guys to create hopefully your own drawings from scratch. So we got a couple basics to go over first before we get into the drawing. And then we'll get to the fun part. Our inspiration. So for me, my inspiration, if you guys saw the last video, was this picture right here. The little house that's above the earth or wherever it's on. I just really like this concept of having my third point in my picture, because we're doing 3-point perspective, but also just kind of like this exaggerated being super high up in the sky kind of feeling. I just thought that was really fun. So then I kind of started forming all these ideas in my head, like what could I do with this? What are some different ideas? And like something that came to my mind was just kind of like a castle that could either be really high up on a hill, it could be on a floating island, it could be on a little stand like this, but the idea of a castle came to mind. So then I had to find my references. So once I knew what I wanted to do, I had a better idea of what kind of references I wanted to gather. So I went onto Pinterest and I looked up castles. Castles on hills, different Japanese castles, illustrated castles. And these were some of the ones that inspired me that I found. You know, predominantly you're going to see stuff like the medieval kind of castles and stuff. But then I saw some that were just kind of showing off these like Japanese style castles. And it kind of inspired me. Like, what if I did like a collaboration between these two where I could have some huge pillars with the pointy tops, you know, kind of like what we think of as like a classic Disney castle nowadays, mixed in with a little bit of a Japanese style. Will it happen? Who knows? We'll find out. So now that I had these inspiration for castles and I found the pictures that I liked, I also needed to kind of explore my own concept a little bit, see what else was out there, give myself some more ideas. So I also was able to find some pictures of castles on an island or floating islands, or just, you know, like this one right here, what it would look like if there was a city in the sky or something like that, right? Just to kind of give me a perspective, give my mind a new way to look at this, see what I can gather from other people's inspirations and stuff. As of right now, I'm still deciding whether I'd want to go with something like this, where we're kind of looking down at the island, or if I want to go with something like this, where we're standing here on the ground and looking up at an island, right? And this is kind of something that I get to play around with in my sketch before I even need to worry about my perspective lines and stuff. Because at the end of the day, the perspective is just going to be a tool that helps me get the image I want. So now we need to set up shop. And what I mean by set up shop is we need to minimize as many distractions as we can. So you can see here, I chose my main inspirations, the ones that I thought were the most vital and important to me, which was my main inspiration, which is this guy, and then also the 3 best castles that I liked. And I also included one that was on top of a floating island, since that is my idea of what I kind of want to accomplish with this picture. Now, these are just my references, and you know, I have them off to the side to kind of clear as much space as possible. If you're working traditionally, or even if you're working digitally like me, you could have these printed out on a separate screen. However it is you like to work. For me, it's just as easy for me to turn these on and off, or I could dim them down, whatever I'd like. But it helps me to have these things at the access to look towards. But again, they're not here for me to copy. I'm not going to be drawing this exact castle and just throwing it on here, right? I want to come up with my own concept. I can definitely draw strong inspirations from this castle. I do really like these peaks and all those things, but I don't want to just completely steal the photo or someone else's illustration. So now comes the part where we just kind of start sketching and feeling it out. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna play around with the concept of us being on the ground or us being above, and see which one I like. And then once I kind of commit to that idea, well, then I'll start setting out my perspective grid, and we'll kind of figure it out from there, right? So I'm going to throw on some music so it's not boring for you guys, because I'm probably going to start concentrating and not talking myself. And let's get to it. All right, so playing around, I think this was the idea that I like the best. I'm thinking kind of a mixture of like the floating island, but on a pillar kind of idea, and maybe some sort of city or something at the bottom of this castle. Like maybe this is literally just like a castle that is above all of its other whatever citizens, and it just shines above all of them. It was carved out of a hill or something. Who knows? This is the concept I'm going to play with. I really like the idea of the castle being off here to the side. Anyways, this is what I'm going to play with. I'm going to set up my perspective grid now, kind of finalize where I want those things to go with. But I'm still just going to kind of leave the ruler off and just kind of like you see here, just throw some lines around pretty roughly and figure out what else I want going on. Remember, I said this before, but perspective is just a tool that's going to help me to keep everything consistent, believable in 3D space, but it's not necessarily something that I have to stick to wholeheartedly and don't let myself deter from any other ideas that I have, which is why I wanted to show something that's not just a city, because I don't want you guys to think that perspective only applies to cities, or if that maybe that's not fun to you and you do like more fantasy stuff like this. So again, I'm just going to turn the music back on. I'm going to keep sketching. What we're going to do here is by the end of this, I'm going to have ideally a light figured out sketch that I can later come back into with my ruler and be a little more precise, which is what I'll do in the part 2 video. But for now, I want to focus on really strong foundation. So simple shapes. I'm looking to block in things. Maybe think about the silhouette. It's a castle, right? So a castle could have a really strong silhouette. Think about the ground, what's going on underneath it, foreground, background, middle ground, all these things. I'm just going to play around, see where my imagination takes me. Just to explain really quickly what I just did, no, this is not the new Las Vegas nightlife club scene with the laser lights. This is actually just me just kind of like throwing down a quick grid of where my possible perspective lines could be. So that way I don't have to think about it when I'm drawing. I don't have to think about going to the points. My lines are kind of, in a way, already there. I don't have to stick to them, but it just kind of helps me stay in the same direction. This isn't something you have to do. It can definitely get confusing. Luckily, with the digital program, I can throw this stuff way in the background so I can only faintly see it. But yeah, just in case it looked like I was turning on a light show on this castle, that's not the intention. All right, back to the drawing. So I definitely went on some sort of journey right there, and thank you guys for following along. That did. I kind of just let my imagination go here, and obviously I gave up the idea of the island. I mean, it still could potentially be, but now it's kind of like the perspective of if we were on a cliffside, really looking up, like we're right underneath this castle. And then the idea of like silhouetting it with the moon came in mind, the hills in the background, and I kind of like it just from what I'm seeing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to clean up some of the line work. We'll kind of straighten this out a little bit, and we're going to call it for there. Maybe discuss some ideas for what I can do after, and we'll save the rest for part 2. So let me clean this up, and then we'll call it a day there. All right, guys, that's about as much as I'm going to clean it up for today. I'm going to make a part 2 where we go in. I'm going to finish the moon and the mountains and stuff. I can discuss whether I want to add on to this or maybe just go straight into shading and stuff like that, and see if we can play around with some colors and perspective as well, and talk about light sources and things like that, because we have many different shapes going on in this castle. I hope this was helpful, especially to those who might be thinking that perspective is just a tool for when you're drawing a city or something like that. Clearly, I mean, obviously castles were part of cities once upon a time, but, you know, we're definitely playing with different kind of concepts here. You know, we can use it to our own liking. It doesn't have to be one format type of thing. So gather some references, guys. Let your imagination go crazy like I did. Have fun with it. If you can, show it to me. I'd love to see it. Otherwise, I will see you guys back in part 2. Have a great day.